You're a narcissist. That's what's wrong with you. You've been gaslighting me my whole life. I know it. I feel empowered. It was like narcissism.
Go ahead. I'm gonna let you go. Go ahead.
So yes, I am going to absolutely mention that I feel like you're not getting promoted even though you're doing most of the work at your job because you're not in the circle. But I'm also going to say, how many times have you been late this month that they felt like they need to overstep you?
Today I have a very special guest, Mrs. Taylor Scott. How are you doing today?
Don't say too special now. They're going to expect something. They're going to expect more than what I got today, okay? I am good.
I think you got a lot to offer for this conversation, for sure. So, Miss Taylor Scott, you are in the city of Memphis, but you're not originally from Memphis.
I am not a Memphian.
Where are you from?
I'm from Dayton, Ohio.
Dayton. A lot of NASCAR and...
No.
No?
No.
Oh, did I just judge you?
You did, actually. Okay. That's low-key crazy. Dayton is more, I don't even know how to say that. The area I'm from is called Jefferson Township, predominantly black. Historically, it was where older black couples went to retire.
Okay.
That's where people went when they had money.
Okay.
It's directly adjacent to a city called Trotwood, which is also predominantly black.
Okay.
My high school was right across the street from cornfields, cows, and horses. So it is a rural space, but it's also a city. It's just so hard to coin Dayton. I don't even know how to describe it.
Okay. That is... I ain't gonna say unusual, but where we from, we're not used to rural being mostly black. Yeah.
Yeah.
You were raised up there your whole life? Did you do any moving around? Or
No.
did you go to the same high school all 4 years?
I jumped around schools, but it was still in the same area. So it wasn't like, this is the new kid on the block. No.
In Memphis, I've been to 12 schools. So every year I pretty much went to a new school.
Was that because you were a heathen, or was it because...
Because I was a what?
A heathen.
Oh my God, I got judged right back.
Exactly.
It came right back on me.
Exactly.
Sort of. It's half me, half mama trying to make it happen. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah,
I was responsible for a couple, and life was responsible, you know.
Yeah.
We ain't got to get into all that. It's not about me, right? So born and raised in Dayton. I feel like it's a racetrack there.
No.
It's not?
No. You're thinking of Daytona.
Oh, Daytona Cup. Okay. I just judged.
I'm not going to judge you for that because Dayton and Daytona.
Is that in Florida?
Yes. Really?
we just gonna move
And you
on.
better not cut that out.
Cut it out. Cut it out. This is starting off wonderful. Oh my God. Okay. Now I lost my train of thought. Lord have mercy. Okay, so born and raised in Dayton, Ohio.
Dayton, not Dayton.
Dayton?
Dayton.
How you say it? Say it one time.
Dayton. Dayton.
Dayton. Okay. Dayton, Ohio. Were you raised with your mom and dad?
Just my mama.
Okay.
Mama and grandmother.
Okay. So are you grandma baby?
I am grandma baby.
Oh, okay. So what was it like for you as far as your family dynamic of being raised by mom and grandma? Like, and kind of just what were you seeing being raised up in that area?
So my grandma to her grandchildren, because we all, even though we're different ages, we all kind of grew up together. So her house was the house, right? A couple of my cousins, we grew up together in the same house. They lived with my grandmother. I stayed with my grandmother. That was home. Life was really good at first. I was a spoiled kid. I'm the only child on my mother's side, so raised very spoiled.
Ooh.
Raised very spoiled. I want to say when I turned 10 years old, life took a turn because my grandmother got sick with Parkinson's and dementia. So what the superwoman I've known for all of my life, I really began to see her kind of break down in a sense.
Be vulnerable.
Yeah. I would have never thought that I would ever see my grandmother in that way. So my mom moved back in to my grandmother's house and began to be her caretaker, and things were really hard. For the first time, I had to learn what no meant. You know, I'm in such a vital developmental stage in life that stuff don't fit the same. And my mom's not paying a bill to get me jeans for school, or not paying a bill to get me shoes, or, you know, something along those lines. So I understand wholeheartedly what it looks like to sacrifice, especially in terms of your children. I had to go to therapy very young because of the stuff like that, because of things that I've seen, because of things that I've experienced. And the biggest thing I think I noticed was that none of them were Black. None of them were Black. I remember going, I can't think of the name of the building, but I see it clear as day. It's literally like 15 minutes away from my grandmother's house. I remember walking into the shiny windows, shiny doors. I knew the whole building was reflective, so that's how I knew I was going to therapy. And I remember going into the office, and there was a white woman that met me. And I was young, you know, and she had toys and all that other good stuff, like the little fidgets and all of that. But it got to a point where I would say certain things, and she didn't know what I meant. And I found myself having to explain cultural things.
Cultural references and stuff like that.
Yeah, like I had to explain cultural things to her. And I'm like, oh, no. This ain't gonna cut it. Like, I don't want to have to explain myself again or more than what I already am. And I'm already young, so I have to use words that I'm not familiar with to explain emotions or explain certain things and how they made me feel.
So you got a double workload.
So now I have to work twice as hard because I got to explain being Black, but also have to explain being a little Black girl and going through bullying because I got holes in my pants and I had to sew a patch on before I went to school. Or, you know, like my shoes don't fit all the way and they rubbing, so I got brown marks on my feet. Like, how do I explain that to somebody who hasn't had to have that experience? Which is what led me into social work because I understood what I needed in that moment and how I wanted to see somebody that looked like me. Not saying that the woman wasn't good at her job, but I wanted somebody that looked like me, that understood me, that was able to get me to where if I'm like, you're able to decode what that means.
I was like, dang, what?
You know,
what I
like,
do?
you know what that means in context. So it's not as serious as it was then.
So you were 10 when you first went to therapy? Or?
I want to say when I first went to therapy, I was 7.
Okay.
But I really needed the therapy at age 10. Because that's when all the changes started. You know, grandma's sick, mom moving back home, things are completely different.
Who suggested therapy to you?
A doctor.
Okay.
Actually. I went to the doctor and I was telling the doctor how I was depressed. Like, and I didn't know that it was depression. I was just telling him what I was going through. Yeah, like what I was feeling. And he's like, oh, you're depressed. And I'm like, okay, what that mean? Like, what is depression? So I knew very early out what depression meant. My mother was in therapy, and she was on like medication to kind of help with some of her things that she was going through as well. So I was familiar, but my mom didn't want to put that on me because she understood how stigmatizing like therapy, medication, all of that was. So the doctor had to recommend that for me to go.
We're going to touch on that stigma later, for sure. For sure. So what was your teenage years like?
My teenage years were really hard.
Okay.
I had a very difficult identity struggle. And honestly, I think I just got out of that as an adult. I was always very smart. And because we went through not having money, you know, I went from having a new pair of shoes that I was wearing every day to stuff not fitting, stuff looking crazy. being depressed and not knowing I was depressed. So like I would go in my room and stay there. I would sleep the whole time. But the one thing I knew I was good at was school. I was always a smart kid. I would always get lost in school. I was always bringing home A's and B's. But then I started doing extracurriculars, honestly, anything to stay away from home because home was a lot, and there was a lot that came with home. So I just tried to stay busy. I want to say my senior year of high school is when I think things really hit a switch for me because I kind of woke up in a sense. Like, I started working my junior year at McDonald's. No, I was 14 when I got my first job.
Okay.
So I got my first job at McDonald's, and I think another dynamic that really made a difference was I was the person responsible for taking care of the family. And mind you, I'm in school, I'm riding the bus to get to work, I'm doing all of these things, extracurriculars, you name it, but still responsible for taking care of home.
So many black women have that story.
Absolutely. And it starts that young for us to the point when we get older, it's a natural dynamic. Like, I've been taking care of people all my life. What you mean I can't take care of this or take care of that? Just add it to the plate. Add it to the plate. But I noticed an identity struggle because I was dealing with what I felt like people wanted me to be versus what I wanted to be. I didn't want to be responsible for taking care of the family, plus myself, plus this, that, and the third. We didn't have financial wellness. We weren't, the most well endowed. I didn't have the connections that other people had. All I knew was I was smart. And my smart had to get me somewhere.
Right.
So senior year was when it really clicked for me and things really did change because I'm about to go off to school. And I just noticed that I possessed something that I had to hone. How do I word that? I really want to say it was one of those things where I woke up on myself. I recognized how much of a superpower being smart was when being smart was how I got by. That's how I stopped getting bullied, was I started helping people with their homework. I started helping tutor people for tests and stuff like that. I really used that for good. I started getting awards. I started winning things. So my self-esteem changed a little bit. I was able to buy clothes that fit. I was able to participate in things because I wanted to. I was able to participate in things like I could afford it, not because I was waiting on my mom or my grandma or whatever to afford it for me. So yeah.
So, when it comes to family dynamics, everybody plays a role, or everybody's a certain character or a certain type of a person that people come to for certain things. Being someone that had to shoulder a load at such a young age, did you have to shoulder mental loads or emotional loads for people too? Like, they express their deepest frustrations on you? How did that affect you?
Still to this day. I was the kid that was wise beyond their years because I was subjected to a lot of stuff early. And I really feel like empathy is my spiritual gift.
And curse, right? And curse too.
Absolutely.
Because
absolutely.
I'm the same way. I feel
absolutely, because I was always able to understand people, and I never judged anybody for what they wanted to do or how they were. That was just me, So taking on that burden, learning what certain things were well before the time I was supposed to, knowing about adult business and being a child, learning about finances that we did or did not have, learning about family secrets, like all of those things that I should not have been privy to, I was privy to. And it forced me to grow up sooner, but then it also forced a different type of load upon me because people knew I could handle it.
Right. At least they thought so.
At least they thought so. The whole time I'm crashing out on the inside. But
so where did you go to college?
Originally, I went to Wright State University, which is a PWI in Fairborn, Ohio. And then I transferred to Wilberforce University, which I graduated with a Bachelor's of Science in Social Work and then a Bachelor's of Science in Sociology. Then from there, I went to Case Western for my master's.
Okay. And what did you major in?
Social work.
Okay, so what because you said your past kind of gave you a push towards social work. What field of social work did it push you towards?
At first, when I started out in the field, I started working with kids. So I worked in children's services, and I felt a lot, we call it countertransference in the field, which is basically feelings that I have from working with particular people. It may feel like I'm back in my own experiences. It may make me like susceptible to blurring lines, right? So I'm acting like it's me, whatever the case may be. And I noticed I was working with a lot of kids who had similar experiences to me, but I also was working in the area that I lived. I even went as far as working in Richmond, Virginia, or Richmond, Indiana, excuse me. I worked in Richmond, Indiana, and it was similar. Like people in the same experiences as me. So I'm like, Lord, what you saying to me?
Mm-hmm.
So then I went and got my master's after that. I took a gap year. Yeah, I took a gap year. And that was one of the hardest things I've ever done. But it taught me so much.
I was just gonna say that kind of speaks to your mental fortitude because the gap year is real. Yeah.
And I was a COVID grad.
Oh.
I graduated in 2020.
Oh.
So I took a gap year literally at the brink of COVID, and I kicked myself for it every day because that whole time I could have been in school. You know, I could have been busting it out. But I took a gap year because I knew that I was chilling too much. But I also knew that my calling wasn't just to be in children's services, and there's only so much you can do without a master's degree. So I went ahead and got that thing.
What role does your faith play in how you think and what?
Very large.
Okay.
Honestly, if it wasn't for my faith and it wasn't for God, I probably wouldn't be sitting in front of you.
It's not a popular thing to say these days, but
Call a spade a spade. Call a spade a spade.
For sure. So you graduate, you go get your master's and graduate again. Now you're going into clinical therapy. What propelled you to go to clinical therapy? Is it more of your experience as a child, or is it more of what you've seen? What brought you here?
It was more of my understanding of what was needed. Because I was working in the field with families, parents, children, you name it. I even stepped away from the children's services sector for a while, and I worked at a nonprofit as a manager of youth and teen programming, which I was directly responsible for two social emotional programming. So it's teaching men and or boys or girls and young ladies how to deal with their emotions, how to process change, things of that nature. And doing stuff like that when kids would just spill out in those sessions about the stuff they couldn't tell their parents, it was like, ding, ding, ding. So a lot of the stuff that I was learning in my master's, I actually was like, I wish I could use this. And that's what kind of pushed me further into wanting to go into mental health, being a therapist, being a social worker, was just seeing the gap, seeing what people needed.
When you said that, it made me think about your first encounter with therapy. And now you're in a position where you're talking to the children that needed you and you wish you had have had that.
Absolutely.
So in that moment, was it full circle for you?
A little too full circle. Yeah. I think the first time I got out of my first session, I busted out in tears. Because it was just like, wow. I've never felt I never felt like I heard God as clearly as ever than that. Ever.
Talk about it.
Well, because it felt like for the first time I was doing exactly what it was that he wanted me to do. The way that it aligned, I was nervous. I mean, I'm nervous doing this interview, right? But as things got started, it just flew so well. Things just happened. I just so happened to know what I was doing. And before, I'm just like, I ain't cut for this. What you mean I'm responsible for somebody else's mental health? Like me? You sure? And I felt like this was the first time that I heard God clearly. I listened to him for what he called me to do. and I was doing it. And it felt like, as a result, I was feeling the fruits of my labor because I would get fueled from the therapy sessions. Like, I could be dead tired. And I'm like, I got a session. Man, I don't really want to do this session. I'm so sleepy. I do the session. I'm well awake, wide awake.
When you get to it, yeah.
Yeah, like I get revitalized from that. So first time I felt like I was obedient in such a way where it was like, good job. Okay, here we go.
What made you, the first session you had, what made you burst out crying after that?
It felt too familiar. And it felt like I was healing my inner child by helping them heal theirs. Because your inner child doesn't go away. It's still there. You know, you're just grown now. And if you don't heal those things in enough time, let me not say in enough time, if you don't heal those things, eventually that begins to bleed into how you act as an adult. And there were certain things that I said or heard in that session that I would never hear from the people that I needed to hear it from. And it just felt too real that I had a bunch of emotions come at one time, and I couldn't show my client that, right? But a bunch of emotions just came out, and it was like, wow, this is what this feels like, huh?
Right.
Like, this is what, wow, okay.
So you like, I'm in the right spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a reminder, for sure.
So what are some mental health challenges you see in the Black community that are unique to us? What did you see that was very unique to us? You can use technical terms if you need to. We're going to get into it.
How much time we got? Okay, so.
We got time. Go ahead.
There's a lot of things. I think number one is the criminalization of care. Let me start off by saying.
Hold on.
I don't want to say that these are just specifically for or toward the Black community, but I'm just seeing it to be very prevalent in my work with the people that I work with.
You said criminalization of
Absolutely.
care?
So.
Never heard that phrase in my life.
So criminalization of care basically just means I don't want to talk to anybody because I feel like you're going to have a CPS worker showing up at my door. If I tell you the ways in which I had to finesse a system or I had to do X, Y, and Z to get by, there's going to be a police officer knocking on my door. You're going to take my kids away. You're going to get me in trouble because I told you that my brother Ray Ray staying with me, and now all of a sudden I'm kicked off the program that helps me pay my light bill. And you know, like when we talk about care and help historically, right? Welfare, we weren't allowed to have a man in the house when you were on welfare. But many of us, even with two people in the household, couldn't afford children and the cost of living. So there wasn't a man was not allowed to live there. And yet when they would seek help, they would have therapists, they would, talk to anybody really, they would get hemmed up for that, and they were required to pay the money back that they just got for assistance.
The criminalization of care.
So by talking to people, something negative ends up happening to me because you're a mandated reporter. You have to report certain instances that you feel like a child is being neglected or in a way of harm. But for me, it's a way of life. For me, that's a normality. I would say the lack of culturally aware care. I don't like to use the word culturally competent because I feel like I can't be competent in somebody else's culture. Even in my own, I feel like I'm steady learning, steady learning more to be able to put in my toolbox. Only 4% of psychologists in the United States are Black. 4%. So you're going to somebody because you're looking to get some help that can prescribe medication for your mental health symptoms. And because they don't understand you or the way in which your culture works that you're deeply submerged into, you don't feel heard. A common example of that is that we have a lot of Black boys that are diagnosed with ADHD and ODD. ODD is oppositional defiant disorder. They get diagnosed with that as early as age 5. And in my opinion, even through experience, that's way too early to diagnose definitively with ADHD or ODD. Many of our young boys are medicated early And that's where the stigma of lack of mental health care comes from, because I'm introducing medication into my child's life extremely early. So now they don't have a full flow of medication because their bodies are too young to be able to, respond to that medication in a certain type of way. So my baby is a zombie now. My baby doesn't laugh, jump, play, do any of those things. Jesse was very hyperactive, but he doesn't do any of that because the medication is way too strong for his little body.
Was Ritalin one of those?
Yes. Ritalin, Adderall. And of course, different medications are biologically working with people's bodies differently. So Adderall may not do it for you. It might be Ritalin, but you have to try the Adderall first to know. So that plays a really big factor. I also want to say, which is quite controversial because some people are like, oh, I don't have to bring this up. Exposure to racism plays a very large part. You feel like everybody is police. You feel like everybody's on that same totem pole, on that same hierarchy as a police officer, and it's care and it's help. And I don't want your care and I don't want your help. And then I want to say as well the stigma around mental health. So I think it's interesting. So when we talk about mental health, right, the Black church used to be the source of all things for Black people.
That's true.
Right? Especially, I want to say it really started traditionally with slavery, but that could be, misinformed. We turned to religion as a way to escape the stressors of slavery. And as time went on, as we got away from slavery, as we went into Jim Crow era, we went into all of these things, right? Religion was seen as our cornerstone of life.
Yes, safe haven, all that.
The church was the way to get a nice meal. The church was our protector. The church was our advocate. The church was our counselor. The church was all things for Black people. You still have some people that have that thought process and that belief system, and they're like, why are you still turning to the white man to get some help? And you need to turn into Jesus. That's the devil. You're not depressed. That's the devil. What you got to be depressed about? The Lord is the stronghold of your life, right? So
I see where you're going.
So there is, and don't get me wrong, I am of Christian faith myself. I understand how pivotal that the Lord was to every step that I made in my life, even now, right? But we also have to take care of a physical being to take care of the spiritual being. And people feel like therapy is very colonized and it's formatted in Western civilization, and it's not for people who have a culture that emphasizes community or emphasizes non-traditional ways of medicine or non-traditional ways of even speaking or presentation, right? So I would say all of those things really play a part in our mental health and just how we approach it.
I'm an avid podcast watcher, from liberal to Republican to conservative to Democrat. Like I watch a lot of content, and what I'm seeing a lot more being talked about is diversity, equity, inclusion, and both sides of the argument. One side is, make it on your merits and pull yourself by your bootstraps, and another is, you can't figure this out because of what you've been through. And I kind of don't agree with either one of them. I think the answer is somewhere in the middle. So as a therapist you are Black, you identify as what you are as Black. When you have certain stances as a Black woman therapist, does that hinder you in any way professionally? Is that something that you're worried about?
So I would say, to first answer this question, I'm able to understand the systemic and also cultural disadvantages that people face that puts them in some of the situations that they're in, right? But also not allow them to make excuses or woe is me that will keep them stagnant. So yes, I am going to absolutely mention that I feel like you're not getting promoted even though you're doing most of the work at your job because you're not in the circle. You know, you're not sucking up to your manager, your boss. You're not trying to be visible. You're not trying to be seen or heard. But I'm also going to say, how many times have you been late this month that they felt like they need to overstep you? You know, so I think being a therapist in today's time, it has to be, like you said, a mix of both. I have to not only understand that, you know, it's always said we have to be twice as better to be as good. All right, true. But then also we have to be mindful of the ways in which we are showing up. That objectively, right?
Objectively.
If I'm comparing myself and a coworker on a checklist just about attendance, quality, communication, if there is any delineation between the two of us, it will have to be things unseen.
There are a lot of opinions about what's wrong with black people, right? And it's like there's a part of me that says we do have to stop making so many excuses for things, but then there's a part of me of like, but really what we have been through has just been talked about from 1400 to like 1920, and it's like where we want to stop when we got free, and it's like something happened after that. There are effects of things that happen. We've had to. It's so many processes, and people say it like it's just words on a page, and it's like no, like there were feelings there. There was turmoil there. There was families breaking up there. It's
Absolutely.
like so. From a clinical therapist standpoint, how do you even address or deal with the trauma that the black family has dealt with?
Ooh, okay. So I think that's such a compacted question.
I'm sorry, I did
No,
stretch it out.
but that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Okay, so I think number one, we bringing back up systemic adversity, right? So talking about, for instance, you may have grown up in a community that is in a food desert. Talking about how resources are scarce. Talking about how there was only one school district and it's failing all of our kids, and it's a public school district at that. Having to go 50 miles out just to go to a good school. Your parents have to take you to school, don't have gas money, things of that nature, right? So all the things that play an individual part. But when we talk about that, so there is a systems theory that we talk about in social work, which it talks about parts, and then it talks about those parts in a whole, right? So you kind of have to break those things down. So yes, like in your environment, you may be in a working poor or working class family. You might not be around many resources. Your family may not have very many connections. You may be in a underfunded school that may not get as much attention as the other schools might, or they may not have notable alumni that give back, whatever have you, right?
Which is common in our...
Yes.
Right.
So then you have the family aspect, right? And you know, we come from generations where it's like what happens in this house stays in this house. I feel like one of the key things that we deal with, whether that's systemic or if it's just individual, is shame. And shame plays a very large part in the way that we deal with the things that happen. So
everything that goes wrong in the country is our fault. That is that. I don't think people understand the weight of that. Like crime, it's our fault. Abortion, it's our fault. Like everything wrong gets placed upon us. Only thing we got is basketball and entertainment.
We're seen as nothing but I mean, that goes back to slavery when they had, you know, the stockiest and the strongest slaves fight each other for their own amusement. That is generational. That goes down. So that's why breaking things down on such a level is so important, because that traces way back to well before we were even a twinkle in a star. Okay? But well before I was even thought of, before my mama was thought of, before my mama's mama was thought of. Those are things that trickled down the line. So then we have the generational trauma, right? And not even just thinking about slavery, but thinking about the fact that, you know, my grandmother's grandmother had to live in a house with an abuser. for all of her life, you know? And then she grows up with the avid distrust of men, but then she has children. These children grow up without their fathers. So then there's a dynamic of, well, why doesn't my dad love me? So then now they're dating men that have they have no business dating, but that leads to some more trauma, right? They get in trouble, they get arrested, they have children out of wedlock, which is a really big thing there. And none of it's secret. None of it is private. So they're living out this trauma. They're living out these instances on a daily basis, right? So then you get down to our generation where you find out that, oh yeah, like your uncle went away because he did X, Y, and Z. Oh no, he wasn't on vacation. He didn't move from state to state. He went to prison. You know, you're learning that they didn't allow you around certain cousins or certain uncles or certain people because of what was done to them. And there was a level of shame. And even explaining that they allowed that to happen, explaining that that happened to them, that they were a victim, that they were helpless and hopeless. So even going back to the systemic portions, because we have now automated the level of care and resources that we receive, so I'm able to go get a payment arrangement at the billing company without having to be seen in the office asking for help. PIP is an automated system that helps pay for people's light bills. The WIC, you don't have to stand in the office on a Monday morning at 8 a.m. to get your WIC. You don't have to stand at the office to apply for food stamps, and they're not physical beings anymore. I just swipe a card and swipe it quick. Everything comes down really to shame. And like you mentioned, to blame. The introduction of black on black crime, the war on drugs, you name it, right? Like we've been at the epicenter of all of that. I think that plays a very large part. I think that then we talk about mental health, right? And the ways in which we have to deal with these instances because we have no control, we need to ignore it. I need to act like it's not there. What happens in this house stays in this house. What happens in this family stays in this family. But then you're trying to figure out why you're getting violently angry. You're trying to figure out why you're drinking all the time. Those beers, that wild Irish rose, all of those things that we used to see our people was drinking back in the day, like that was their coping mechanism. Them going out in the back smoking, coping mechanism. That was all in the ways in which they dealt with the things they were going through. Just never named it to tame it.
I've noticed that just in what you're talking about throughout this whole conversation, not the whole conversation, but I would say when we started talking about family, and this is something I notice with a lot of us, we reverence the women as great, powerful, and we reference the men as demonic or the demon or the molester. Why do you think we do that?
I feel like that's just a part of lived experience. What I notice when I work with African American families or maybe like black women or whatever have you is that men were never their safe space. They were a requirement though. So I didn't get married for love. I got married because I couldn't do it by myself. I didn't get married for love. We had a baby. And that was kind of what we were told to do next. So if we're talking about those African American women or even like their daughters, their granddaughters, a lot of that is passed down. A lot of that. They see men as a requirement. They didn't see men as an additive, as a support, as the things that they're supposed to be, right? You are my rock. If you're not just a provider, we're in love. I can honestly say that I didn't even think about marriage when I was younger. I didn't think about, I'm going to have a dream wedding. I didn't even think about a man. I just thought about what I was about to do. But that was generational. We didn't center men. It wasn't a thing of like, I'm going to keep him around. But then also, my mom's generation, they seen a lot of men be married and do cruel things in the marriage That, I mean, is a provider, is a husband, is a shelter supposed to do that?
So, what do you think about this explosion of male podcasts, specifically black male podcasts? Why do you think that happens now? So much
For
more.
that very reason.
What very reason?
For the very reason of them being disregarded. And because you're disregarded and you're only seen as what you can produce, or you're only seen as what you do, there's no space for your emotions. And when you have emotions, what's wrong with you? Why you acting like that? So they created their own space to talk about their feelings. I may watch a podcast and I may not agree. I will never outright comment because that's not my space. You have a right to say whatever it is that you want to say. You have a right to have whatever experience whatever opinion of the experience that you had. That's not my space to tell you that your opinion or your lived experience is stupid. I don't believe in that. Speak your truth. The same way I tell a woman to speak her truth. It's just normal and expected for us to be emotional. And men, they don't have that same privilege.
I am. Hold on. Like, I've never heard that. You know what I'm saying? And I have been a podcaster and have said some inflammatory things out of what I've experienced and what I've been through and what I feel ignored, and I've corrected those since then. But even though I watch some of the guys go through the same thing I went through 5-6 years ago, I try to correct them, but I don't admonish them. I don't push them down because I'm like, he got to get it out.
Yeah.
And I think like this whole it's like it seems like it's never gonna end. Like the men that were horrible to women back in those days created women that are starting to be horrible to men, and now men are going to start being horrible. It's like how does it stop? I was going to ask you another question tied to this because I'm glad we're getting here, because now you're seeing the dramatization of these terms of clinical therapy. You're
Like
seeing,
narcissism.
Go ahead. I'm gonna let you go. Go ahead.
So, I just made a post on my business page on Instagram that talks about stop self-diagnosing. I feel like as a therapist, we make videos and posts to expose you to the things that you are experiencing, but expose you to the actual term for what it is so that you know to name it, So I tell you about trauma because I want you to understand that any negative experience that you've had, that you were near death, you were fearful, you've even seen somebody else go through, can give you PTSD. I need you to understand that, and that can directly correlate with how you act when you're scared or when you're triggered. That doesn't mean that everything has to be trauma or triggering.
Right.
Just because somebody wants to do something that they want to do does not make them a narcissist. It does not. I hate hearing that word because I'm like, how are you using that? That doesn't make them a narcissist. Everything isn't gaslighting because I'm telling you about yourself. It doesn't work that way. But unfortunately, because we're in such a digital age right now, there's just so much access without the proper introduction that stuff won't be able to make sense unless they put themselves in a place to receive the instruction. So unless you truly learn what gaslighting, what trauma, what narcissism is, you're not going to use it in the right context. You're not. But at the same time, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you feeling like somebody was gaslighting you was wrong. Okay, so let's talk that out. What did you feel from them doing it?
See, that's the problem. we're not talking that out. We're making a post and that's it. You can leave a comment, and I see a whole lot of. I mean, I've done it. I'm gonna be honest. Where you
We all
watch
have.
content that verifies and confirms the way you feel
Oh yeah.
because you just want to be mad at your ex, or you have a interpretation of what happened with your mom and you don't even understand the full scope of these things. So we look with it's confirmation bias.
Absolutely.
We're looking for that. And it's like I was going to ask you a question about the stigma of therapy being for crazy folks, which was, I guess, the worst end of the stigma.
Absolutely.
And it's like now we're at this end of it's become social. It's become pop culture to talk about therapy. Do you think that that's like what's your viewpoint on just the way therapy and these words are really being used?
So I have a controversial take on that. I am actually grateful that therapy and these terms are thrown around because it gives people exposure they wouldn't have because they wouldn't be in the place to receive the exposure. It gives them curious. It forces them almost into a realm. I'll give you an example. You know how it's commonly said, like, if you want to be a millionaire, you got to be around millionaires, right? I feel the same way about wellness. If you want to be well, you have to be in places to seek wellness. And wellness, I feel like, is a continuous journey. It's not a place to arrive to. And I feel like nobody wants to work on themselves for as long as they live, right? So you're not going to be in places where you're going to actually hear a therapist talk about narcissism, trauma, gaslighting, any of those things, because that's not what you're looking for. But because we're in such a digital age that it just so happens to pop up on your For You page, it just so happens to pop up on your timeline. It's a repost. And they are getting what they need from therapy quickly. So I want to say that's truly the difference with this digital age versus prior. You had to go directly to what you sought. I had to go to a therapist to receive therapy. I had to go to these places to get these resources. Now I feel like watching a skit. Ooh, I feel healed. You're a narcissist. That's what's wrong with you. You've been gaslighting me my whole life. I know it. I feel empowered, in which I'm grateful that they are exposed to those terms. Just let me teach you how to use it properly.
Right.
Let me teach you the ways to go about it.
So just for the people that are watching, just you don't have to go too deep, but what is a narcissist?
How do I want to word that to make it make sense? Let's consider a narcissist somebody that intentionally causes strife, causes issue, but they will always be the victim. Somebody who likes to be the center of attention at all times, and will blatantly turn a situation where they're wrong to how you could be wrong. How instances about you or for you or even that have something to do with other people gets turned into something about them. So it's really a self-centered person that does not like to be wrong, a person that likes to flip the script a lot. They will never accept accountability. They will never be forward about the things that they do wrong. And even in the instance when you call them out, they will either respond with excessive sadness that just does not fit, right? Or anger. And most of the time when people say, like, you're a narcissist, they don't want to accept what somebody is trying to tell them. Like, two things could be true at one time, right? Yes, I could be wrong here, but you were also wrong here. Instead, the person wants to be heard without response. And that's where you're a narcissist, or, gaslighting even comes from, because how dare you tell me about myself when I'm telling you about you?
Right.
So, yeah, that's what I would summarize that in layman's terms.
Yeah. And just to be clear, people, She's summarizing. So if you really want to get an understanding of this, you might want to, I don't know, watch a seminar, go sit down with a therapist, get some understanding.
Schedule a discovery session with your local therapist that takes your
Oh, what is it called?
insights. A discovery session.
Okay.
So, not every therapist does this, but most of the time when you receive a referral, somebody's interested in therapeutic services, there's something called a discovery call where they see if your goals and their capabilities align. So, you're wanting to work on trauma. Do I specialize in trauma? Is that my wheelhouse? Do I specialize in self-worth, purpose, OCD, depression, anxiety? Do I have that specific knowledge in order to help you reach your goal? And if I don't, who can I refer you to that might? So most of the time people do discovery calls free of charge. That's not something we charge you for. Just to make sure that you have what you need for mental wellness.
That is great. All right, she gave y'all a nugget on that one. Okay? I never knew that.
Yeah.
So I want to just talk a little bit more about the narcissistic. Was it NPD?
BPD?
NPD, is it narcissistic personality? Yeah, that's what It's a. I've been doing a little research. You know what I'm saying? A little razzle, a little dazzle, but as somebody that has been in relationships where once I feel like I've dealt with a narcissist, my mentality is to prove that they're not one, not to prove that they are one.
Right.
That's just kind of how I think about it. So I would think, let's say, but there was this time that she or he was like really apologetic and really seemed sincere in what they felt. So how could they be a narcissist if they don't display that 100% of the time? Like, is it that cut and dry, or like I think that's what people that haven't got the knowledge struggle with, because it's like they can think of a time where they were thoughtful then, or they did do this in a good way then. So what would you say to that person?
I feel like nothing about mental health is linear.
Okay.
Like nothing. You could be a person, we could be two people that have depression in the room, but it looks different for the both of us. But we both have depression. Like, I am a person that I seclude. I stay in my room. I don't come out. I don't talk to people. You could blatantly be in somebody's face and still be depressed.
Which you said from your childhood. Right.
You could be as performative as all get out and still be depressed. So even when it comes down to narcissism, are there things that are certain criteria? Because when we evaluate and diagnose in the DSM-5, which is basically our holy grail of a book, right, that has every diagnosis that has been reviewed and or approved. And each diagnosis has criteria that you have to meet in a certain time frame and or just experience-wise that will allow us to reach a certain diagnosis. So say, for instance, for you to have a bipolar disorder, right? Bipolar disorder is normally episodic. So either you're going to have a very low, or you're going to have a high, which we call mania. Have you experienced that? There's something called schizoaffective disorder, which, it's not quite schizophrenia, but you have depressive symptoms. Have you experienced those two symptoms within 2 weeks of each other? There are just specific guidelines around every diagnosis, but it can look different for everybody. So I would really say the basis, the principle is what matters more. So if I don't believe in diagnosing folks, you're not supposed to diagnose folks unless you actually have the criteria to do so. However, you can say, oh, I think this person is a narcissist, but they've been super apologetic once, but did that apology center around getting you off of their back because you were mad? Was that performative? Or was it something that they were authentic in? Those are the type of questions that we ask in order to find basis to lead us to a proper diagnosis. Not really the act itself, but more so the root, the cause.
Okay, that was very informative.
Thank you. I tried.
First, I just want to thank you for coming through for this interview because I don't know, we might have to do a part 2. I'm not gonna lie.
I'm cool with that. There's a lot more to say.
It is. We didn't have enough time. I really don't feel like we did, but we touched on some things that people are going to hear and watch, and they're going to think, what is my next step?
Yeah.
So as somebody that's dealing with what they may feel is depression, or what they might feel they're schizophrenic, or they just feel like, I don't feel good, what would you tell these people to do?
So of course the first thing would to be evaluate what level of help you think you need. If you are hearing things, if you are seeing things, if you have thoughts of harming yourself or harming other people, to immediately seek help and dial 911 or 988, which is the hotline. But after that, I would say seek mental health help. So there are websites like Psychology Today that you're able to search for a therapist and filter based upon gender, based upon race, based upon insurance. That will help you find providers that take your insurance in your area. But then there are also, for those who may be uninsured, there are community-based programs that are able to get you free sessions. I know I work with Appleseeds Memphis, so we partner with several community-based organizations that will provide free sessions for individuals, and then we can reassess the client for additional sessions based upon what we're seeing. So I would say, depending on your situation, find the best way to seek that help, whether that's utilizing your insurance. Many places take Medicaid or Medicare, or if that means just going through your local community office for sessions. But don't be scared to get that help. I'm a therapist myself. I have a therapist. I thoroughly believe in the work that is done in therapy, so you're not alone in your search.
Okay, I got more questions real quick. I was told by someone that is not a therapist, so I'm going to put that out there. They were not a therapist that said this. They were not a therapist that said this. They said that you should probably switch therapists every 6 to 8 months. Is that?
No.
No?
I don't agree.
Okay. Talk about it.
So I'm going to put you in a stage. Set it this way. Say we have 5 sessions and you tell me your entire life story. Everything from your childhood to your adulthood to your traumas, even down to like now, like my love life, what I've gone through, what I've put myself through, whatever have you. 6 to 8 months is just us hitting the tip of the iceberg. So when I do a treatment plan normally after we do like a diagnostic assessment and we diagnose the client, right? A treatment plan informs the work that we're going to do in a session. And by insurance standards, we have to set that for every 90 days. 90 days is 3 months.
Yeah.
We're just hitting the tip of the iceberg in 90 days.
I did say they were not a therapist.
So we're just getting started in 90 days. So imagine after 6 months, you have to go to somebody else and tell them your entire life story.
Right.
Tell them everything from the rooter to the tutor. Tell them what you've gone through now, and basically try to get them to resume what you were working on with the past therapist.
Right.
Every therapist is different. Every
Right.
therapist application is different. The way in which they do things are different. You will never find the same therapist twice.
Yeah.
So I know people who've kept their therapist for 4+ years and just reduced the frequency of appointments they receive. So they went from weekly when they really felt like they were losing their minds, right? I'm struggling, I need help, to then only seeing them once a month to stay, on their retainer, just to have them if something happens.
Right.
So I disagree wholeheartedly.
Okay. you fearless. You know, you shoot straight from the hip, huh?
Yeah,
That's that Ohio in you.
that's that Taylor in me. That's the Taylor in me. I
Yeah.
wish I could give that to Ohio, but I can't.
Yeah, it's in the chromosomes.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and wrap. But is there anything that you want to leave the people with? And also, you know, if you're local in Memphis, or I mean, if you anywhere, you know, if you're looking for a therapist,
Yes.
here's one right here. So go ahead and give them a spiel.
So I am a therapist with Appleseeds Memphis. I am contracted through them, so I see clients virtually anytime that fits their schedules, whether that's early in the morning or in the evening. Of course, you can either find me on Instagram at TTEETHE shrink SHRINK, or you can send an email to referrals@appleseedsmemphis.com to reach out about seeing a therapist. Appleseeds has 10 therapists that are a part of the team that would love to have a new client.
Okay, well, we're gonna go ahead and wrap. Mrs. Taylor Scott, I really appreciate you
Of
today.
course, no problem.
And we're gonna help the people, and we're gonna make a change in a positive way to help the culture.
Absolutely.
For Showski. All right.